An American who witnessed the execution of Saddam Hussein. An American soldier who witnessed the execution of Iraqi President Saddam Hussein says that even after so many years, the haunting memory of that night still echoes in his mind. He admits that he often finds himself asking what Islam teaches about death and about men who face it with peace instead of fear. He said in an interview, "Saddam was a man who deserves respect. I've seen many prisoners meet their end, but never have I seen anyone face death like that." It was 2 a.m., Greenwich time, when the heavy iron door to Saddam Hussein's cell creaked open. The head of the Iraqi execution squad entered, followed by a few officials. He ordered the American guards to leave the cell. The atmosphere was tense, cold, and silent. Only the distant hum of the night could be heard. Then came the words, "You will be executed in 1 hour." Saddam looked up calmly. Not a flicker of fear crossed his face. His reply was simple. In God's hands is the command of every soul. He sat down and continued with what he had already planned, his last meal. He ordered chicken and rice earlier that midnight. He ate slowly with composure. Then he poured himself several cups of hot water mixed with honey, a drink he had been fond of since childhood. When one of the guards asked if he would like to visit the toilet before the execution, he shook his head and said softly, "No, I'm ready." At 2:30 a.m., Saddam performed ablution while washing his hands, face and feet, and as prescribed before prayer. He sat on the edge of his iron bed holding a small Quran, a gift from his wife. His lips moved silently, reciting verses that only he and his Creator could hear. The flickering light cast long shadows on the concrete walls, and in that cold cell, his calmness seemed almost unreal. Meanwhile, in the next room, the execution team prepared the noose and the gallows. Every movement felt heavy with dread. At 2:45 a.m., 2 men from the morgue arrived with a wooden coffin, placing it beside the gallows. The sight of the coffin made several guards avert their eyes. At 2:50 a.m., Saddam Hussein was escorted to the execution chamber. Inside were judges, government officials, scholars, and a doctor, witnesses to the event that would change history. When he entered, he was not led. He walked himself. His hands were bound, but his posture remained straight, his steps steady. He even greeted those present with a quiet nod, as if walking into a meeting, not his death. At 3:10 a.m., the execution order was officially read aloud. A video camera in the corner recorded everything. The entire world would later see fragments of this historic moment. The American witness recalls, "I couldn't believe what I was seeing." Saddam stood tall, fearless. The executioners, on the other hand, were trembling. Some wore black masks like mafia men, their hands shaking as they adjusted the rope. The contrast was shocking. He was calm. They were terrified. Saddam's eyes scanned the room once. Then he began to recite in a firm, clear voice, "La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." The soldier says, "When he smiled while saying those words, I froze. I wanted to run. For a second, I thought the room was rigged with explosives. How could a man smile seconds before death? No one could believe it." But he smiled, genuinely, as if he saw something beyond us, something invisible. If the Iraqis hadn't recorded it, my American colleagues would have never believed me. They'd say I imagined it. But no, I saw it with my own eyes. He smiled, repeated the Kalima in a strong voice, and it felt like some unseen power surrounded him. Then the lever was pulled. The rope tightened. Silence filled the chamber. Saddam Hussein, once the most powerful man in Iraq, met his end with the words of faith on his lips. Some facts about Saddam Hussein. He was the first Arab leader to launch missiles directly at Tel Aviv, the heart of Israel. He forced the Israeli population into shelters, hiding like frightened cats from his Scud missiles. Even in war, he shouted slogans of Arab unity and nationalism, believing himself to be the defender of Arab pride. During his trial, he reminded the judge, "Remember when I pardoned you, even though you were sentenced to death?" The judge resigned shortly after, terrified, and was replaced by another. He once told his guards, "We studied death in school. Will we fear it now in old age?" 6. To Syria and Lebanon, he famously said, "Give me your borders for 1 week, and I will liberate Palestine." Moments before his execution, an American officer stepped forward and asked respectfully, "Mr. President, do you have any final wish?" Saddam thought for a moment and replied, "Bring me my coat." Surprised, the officer asked, "That's all? Why do you need it now?" Saddam looked at him and said calmly, "It's cold in the morning in Iraq. I do not want my body to tremble. My people must never think that their leader feared death." He then stood beneath the noose, raised his head high, and whispered his final word, Shahada, martyrdom. Moments later, the world saw him leave, not defeated, but dignified. Before his death, Saddam had once warned the rulers of the Arab world, "America will execute me, but your own people will execute you." Years later, those words would echo across the Middle East, as uprisings swept through nations and toppled governments, just as he predicted. That night, an American soldier walked out of the execution chamber a changed man. "I used to think strength was in weapons, in power, in control," he said later. "But that night I saw a man who had lost everything, his throne, his army, his freedom, yet stood taller than everyone in the room. I saw a man smiling at death." And so he confessed that every time he closes his eyes, he remembers that face, calm, fearless, unshaken.